Hey there, guys. Dragon Master here, and I want to welcome you to Star Wars and Earth Unity episode 17, War for Nal Hutta, Part 2. So, I don't have anything really to say, so we're going to get straight into the video. We start out we start off on the planet of Nal Hutta, as Mandalorian forces and Hutt forces are currently engaged all over the planet. Mandalorian soldiers are currently tearing into what's left of Hutt forces around their palaces. Many Hutt droids are currently holding position inside to protect the Hutts who have not evacuated. Currently inside the palace, a group of Hutts are currently communicating with each other and asking, what are we going to do? We're being surrounded and our forces are being slaughtered by the Mandalorians. And one of the Hutts says, relax, I have an idea. And they all look at him. What do you mean? We should use the gas. And they all go quiet before they all started screaming at him and said, are you out of your mind? Why would we do that? And the Hutt says, I know. We agreed not to use it on our worlds, and only use it on our enemy worlds, but we have no choice. And if we use a small bit amount, will be able to save us. Or do you all want to die? They'll look at each other and say, are you absolutely sure this won't destroy our world? Relax, the Hutt says. As long as we use a small dosage, there will be some damage, but it'll be reversible. They all look at him and said, all right, do it. The Hutt then turns off the communicator and then leaves to go talk to his subordinate. He looks to one of his commanders and says, begin getting the gas ready to deployment, and they all nod their head. The subordinate nods his head and goes off, and the Hutt sighs. God, we made a mistake going to war with the Mandalorians, he murmurs. We cut outside to one of the main Hutt palaces where the Hutt Council is located. The special walkers that are designed to target Mandalorian armor are slowly being destroyed as more and more Mandalorian forces engage with them, along with mercenaries and bounty hunters that have agreed to work with the Mandalorians. They, the commander who's in charge of leading one of the raids into the palace, his forces have just finished off the final walker when they hear a noise. Everyone goes quiet and they all start murmuring, what's that? They murmur around. I don't know, someone says. The Mandalorian commander looks at all his forces and frowns. He then looks over to the palace and sees something odd. One of the hangars in the palaces are opening. Curious, he uses a binocular and then sees in, and what he sees is not good, and it terrifies him to the bone. He sees dozens of canisters full of that gas that he's heard the Hutts have been manufacturing, and they're being loaded onto vessels that are beginning to take off. He immediately understands what the Hutts are doing and then turns to his force and says, we get in contact with everyone. We need to target those shuttles hit, before those hit the battlefield. Everyone begins running as he activates his jetpack and begins flying with the others. He then says, all forces, charge! We need to stop them. As he flies through the air and he sees the shuttles are taken off, and he immediately finds one and then shoots his rocket into its engine, and it destroys the engine and it crashes into the ground. but but an explosion from the gas canisters take place, killing everyone inside, and it starts to leak out. Plant life is killed immediately as radiation starts to leak out, as it's highly toxic. This horrifies anyone around and the Mandalorian leader, and he knows that if this makes it to the battlefield, they'll have huge casualties. He can't believe the Hutts are this desperate to do this, but he knows they want to survive. And he also knows as long as that it's not a high amount of it, that it won't be too much damage. He sighs. He sees that the shuttles are slowly being picked off one by his forces. But then his one of his forces rockets hits one of the shuttles in a hangar, and this explodes all of the toxic canisters, and a huge cloud of it begins leaking out. And this horrifies the Mandalorian leader and knows that they have to retreat. He then orders all forces get away from the palace immediately. As everyone retreats, some are not lucky and fall to the gases, toxic nenticities, sorry about that. Can't pronounce it. As many of them retreat from a distance, as they see it starts to leak over all over the palace. Any any of the Hutts are killed in there, along with any organic forces. The droids are fine. Ironically, the Hutt leader who had proposed using it is killed. This results in the death of over half of the Hutt's council. The other half is safely on Nar Shaddaa. The Mandalorian leader immediately contacts his superior and tells them what is going on. Up in space, with the Mandalorian fleet had been aggressively battling the Hutt forces. The Mandalorians using currently on the Mandalorian's dreadnought, the lead ship. The Mandalorian leaders are currently talking and wondering what they should do, while they're all arguing on what to do, as if they know that if that gas escapes, it could do a lot of damage to the planet. Some are arguing that this is a good thing and the Hutts deserve this, their planet deserves to suffer, but some argue that there were many innocent people. Finally, after a bit of yelling, one of the Mandalorian captains proposed an idea. Sir, what if we bombard the palace to the ground? And everyone looks at him and says, what do you mean? Well, this gas, due to its high toxicity levels, as it's quite toxic to organic material, if we bombard it with from orbit, if we bombard it and destroy the surrounding area to atoms, then it will destroy most of the toxicity and it will keep it from spreading. But that area will be toxic for hundreds of years, someone murmurs. And it is a main population area. I know, the captain says, but we have no choice. Most of the people have evacuated, and if there's anyone there, we'll try to get them out. But if we don't do that, then we could be looking at a huge amount of that toxic spreading across the planet. They all go quiet, and eventually one of them says, all right, we'll do it. Begin getting our fleets over there. Also, how goes the battle? We've pushed most of the Hutt forces to Nar Shaddaa. They've currently blockaded the planet and are currently holding position there. Good. Move our fleets. And and then afterwards tell everyone to resupply. We're moving to Nar Shaddaa. If reports are true, that's where the remaining half of the Hutt Council will be. Everyone nods their heads and gets into position. Most of the Mandalorian ground troops move away from the palace and the surrounding area. The Mandalorian fleet begins their bombardment immediately. The dreadnought also joins in as it fires all of its turbo lasers to the ground. They tear apart the palace and surrounding areas, creating a ginormous crater when it's done. This saves the planet, but most of the surrounding areas will be toxic for hundreds of years, meaning no one will be able to settle there. Looking down at the crater the deep moat, well, I guess deep hole of a crater they had created, the Mandalorian captain nods his head and then says, "All right, let's pick up our forces. We've finished our work here." They all nod their head, and as the Mandalorians are retreating from the planet, a mysterious hooded figure watches and laughs and says, "This is even better than I could hope. It seems the Hutts are about to fall, but when an animal is cornered, it's when they're the most dangerous, as they know that they'll do anything to survive or make it as an animal do whatever it knows to survive." He then chuckles. "I'm curious what the Hutts will do now that they're on their last legs. Everything is still going to plan, but better," he murmurs, and then walks off into the bushes. And that's where we're gonna leave it off. So as you can see, the Mandalorian versus Hutt arc is currently coming to a slow end. The Hutts had a good run, but as you can see, it seems they're not doing the best against the Mandalorians. Now you're probably wondering why they probably used the gas, and I'm just gonna say that they were desperate. They knew that they were losing. The Mandalorians have been getting stronger over the years, and due to Terran policies, the Hutts are pretty much hated. Along with the New Republic trying to curb their power, they've been slowly growing weaker, and they've been putting all their resources into this, as they know the Mandalorians once brought the Republic to its knees, and they wanted to use that, along with the Beskar, to build their new droids. Similar to what they tried during the Old Republic, but yeah. So, but it's not over. There's still a few more episodes I'm gonna do with the Hutts and Mandalorians. But for now, it seems the Hutts are on the losing end. So yeah, I guess that's all I wanted to say. So I guess I'll see you for the next one. Bye.